Very few of us, it seems to me, like to be corrected. Unless you were a saintly child, you probably moped around like I did when you got rebuked by your mom or your dad, or you probably pouted a little bit when you were sent off to your room, or in those rebellious days of our lives. Well, in your life, maybe I haven't had my rebellious days yet. I'm looking forward to it, though. But in those rebellious days when we just kind of shirk everyone off and we say, I'm going to do my own thing and I want to build my own thing and nobody's going to tell me what to do, there's this sense of just not wanting to hear it from other people, not wanting to be corrected. And I think in many ways it springs from this sense of maybe not really trusting the motive of the other person. You know, if there's someone that we love and we know loves us, offers us some sort of correction, we're much more open to receiving it and being changed. But if it's someone that we don't know or someone that we don't like, there's a much lower chance that we're going to receive that really well and respond to it really well. Because it all depends on that relationship. And that theme is what really comes up in our readings today on a number of occasions. We hear in our gospel today these servants coming to the house of the master, and the master is already in. And he's not opening the door, and they bang on the door, and twice the master responds by saying, I do not know where you are from. It's a very interesting statement. He doesn't say, I don't know you, or you're not welcome here, but I do not know where you are from. There's something about being from a place that shapes us. We have a certain accent, a certain way of speaking, a certain way of behaving and acting that identifies us as being from a certain place. And so if God is saying to us, I do not know where you are from, then God is saying to us, I don't recognize you. I don't know that voice. I don't know that accent. That way of living doesn't resemble my way of living. In other words, you've chosen another kingdom because you're certainly not living in my kingdom. Because if you were living in my kingdom, then I would know where you were from. But you've chosen another kingdom, or you've chosen to build your own kingdom because you're not familiar to me. And I think we do this sometimes. That streak of independence in us causes us to just want to do our own thing. And we say to the Lord, look, I don't want to listen to you. I don't want to do what you're asking of me. What the church says is too hard, and so I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to build my own kingdom. I'm going to be the measure. I'm going to be the standard. And I'll judge myself according to my own measure and my own standard, and then I'll judge everyone else according to that measure. And we build our own place. It's interesting in chapter 1 of the Acts of the Apostles in verse 25. The apostles are discerning who will follow Judas. And there's a line that says, and Judas went off to his own place. That's what we do. So often, when we want to do our own thing, we go off to our own place and we put ourselves in danger of hearing those words of the Master in our gospel. I do not know where you are from. This doesn't look familiar to me at all. And so, God, through the church, calls us to conversion, calls us to holiness, calls us to resemble the person of Jesus Christ. There's that great line from St. Paul, I never get tired of hearing it. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. This is how far St. Paul went in his relationship with Christ. So much so that when anyone looked at him, what they saw was Jesus. When they heard the voice of Paul, they heard the voice of Jesus. When they saw Paul acting and reaching out and evangelizing and bringing people in to the fold of Christianity, what they saw was Jesus acting in history. This is the kind of conversion that we are called to put on completely the person of Christ, to be changed by him, which means to speak in the way that Jesus spoke, to love in the way that Jesus loved, to reach out in justice to those who are oppressed, to care for those who are in need, to protect the dignity of others in the way that Jesus did it. This is how we work our way towards heaven, not by manufacturing something on our own, but by putting on the person of Jesus Christ. It's interesting, I had dinner just a couple nights ago, a wedding rehearsal, and I sat next to the grandmother who was a Methodist. And she was hilarious. And at a certain point in the dinner, she turned to me and said, "You know, I spent some time with these Catholics once." Yeah, and it's exactly what I did. Yeah, I thought, oh no. It's like when somebody says to me, "I went to school with your cousins." I'm like, oh gosh, I'm sorry. Just apologize immediately. And so, but anyway, this lady said, no, it was really wonderful. These Catholics were wonderful. They had a way about them, a way of being together. It's like everybody knew what was happening in everyone else's family, like they shared life in a particular way. And then she paused for a moment and she said, communion. That's the word I'm looking for. They lived communion. Communion is nothing more than belonging to a place, belonging to a person who holds us together as one. This is what we are called to, communion. And that means letting go of this radical independence that makes us want to separate ourselves from other people and do our own thing. It means putting ourselves into the hands of God and saying, I belong to you. More than to anything else, I belong to you. And so, friends, in this Eucharist, let's beg the Lord to help us to really pay attention to how the Lord is calling us to change. How God is calling us to turn back from our selfishness, from our radical independence, and to depend wholeheartedly on him. Let's pray that we can do that so that one day we will hear the voice of the Master say to us, I know where you're from.